Welcome to the Bulletproof Entrepreneur Podcast, episode 12.
If you're ready to take your destiny into your own hands, you've come to the right place. This is Odeshi, the Bulletproof Entrepreneur, featuring interviews with the most exciting and amazing entrepreneurs across Africa. Here's your host, Chi Odogu.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show once again. I just want to continue to remind you guys that this is the final week of our book giveaway for the launch of the show. We're giving away 2 books. The Obstacle is the Way, The Timeless Art of Turning Trials into Triumph by Ryan Holiday, and Choose Yourself by James Altucher. So this is the final week. On October 31st, I'll close the giveaway for the books, and I'll announce the winners in the next podcast, and I'll also send out an email so that everyone knows who the winners are. So the only way for you to enter into the giveaway is to leave a review on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, and also enter your name on our email list on our website at www.odeshi.com. I also want to thank all our listeners for helping us to stay on top of the charts in iTunes. We're still the number 1 business podcast in iTunes, Nigeria, and it's been a pleasure rocking that list. We're kind of like the only indigenous podcast up there right now with other American podcasts, but we also want to cross over to, the Ghanaian iTunes list, Egyptian iTunes list, South African iTunes list, Kenyan iTunes list. So please continue to listen to the show, share it, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and every other social media channel. We've been getting a lot of love from all our listeners, and we just want to continue to bring you awesome content from awesome entrepreneurs going forward. So if you have any questions or comments about anything you've heard on any one of the shows, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is on the website as chi@odeshi.com, or just leave a comment in any of the comment section of the prior podcast. So recently I got some emails and offers to do some interesting projects across Africa, and I'll be sharing more details about these upcoming projects in the near future, so stay tuned and look out for what they are. I think they're going to be very, very beneficial to a lot of you out there that are looking to start your business or that are working on your businesses currently and need some help with growth or gaining traction or increasing customer acquisition. So stay tuned for those projects. I'll let you know in the coming podcasts. Now let's dive right into the show with Kola Masha.
Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Kola Masha. He's the managing director of Doreo Partners, an impact investing firm that leverages agricultural venture capital to drive youth employment. Kola started his professional career at GE and has worked with ABIOMED and Notore Chemicals. He's the founder of Doreo Partners currently. He holds an M.B.A. from Harvard Business School and a master's degree in mechanical engineering
from MIT.
So Kola has gone through business, technology, and in his teenage years, he was a host of a TV show in Nigeria. So he's a true Renaissance man. He's come on the show to talk to us about investing in agriculture. Kola, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, I think you were very gracious with your intro. Really, what we're focused on right now is we recognize that the problems facing Nigeria and really most of the continent are too large for government or traditional non-profits to be able to tackle alone. So we believe firmly that the private sector needs to take a more active role in that, and really that's what we see our role being, particularly as we try to address the issue of youth unemployment, which I think, as you and your listeners know, is a very, very serious challenge. Take Nigeria, for example. We've got a population of 160, 170 million people. Half that population is under the age of 19. Which means we have 18 million people in Nigeria alone under the age of 19. Those 18 million people will be coming into the workforce in the next 20 years, all looking for jobs. So we have to create the equivalent of the population of Germany in terms of jobs in the next 20 years in Nigeria. So it's a major challenge. As an organization, we've committed ourselves to create about 10 million jobs through our investments by 2030. We're on the path path towards that.
Okay, great. So why did you get into investing in agriculture? Because you came back from, talk to us a little bit about your journey from the United States back to Nigeria before we get into Doreo
Sure.
itself.
So my career outside Nigeria had primarily been in the healthcare space. It was an area that I thoroughly enjoyed. I found it intellectually challenging, and at the same time, an area where you felt that you woke up in the morning and knew you were doing something bigger than yourself. When I made the decision to move back to Nigeria in 2007, primarily for personal reasons, my parents at the time were here in Nigeria. All my siblings and I were outside, and my mother's health was not the best. So I made a personal decision that probably is best if I moved back to Nigeria so I could be closer to them and help support them and help her get back on her feet. And so when I was looking at opportunities in Nigeria, I knew I wanted to find an opportunity that gave me that same feeling of impact that I got from the healthcare space in my prior career. And I found that in the agriculture space. I think it was one of those areas where there was tremendous opportunity in terms of growth, as well as you knew that the work that you were doing was having impact on tens of thousands, potentially millions of people.
So you came back to Nigeria and then you interviewed and you got the job with Notore?
Well, actually, I was fortunate enough through relationships that I had, actually all the way back to high school. I was able. A good friend of mine I reached out to him and he mentioned to see if he knew any good people looking for good people. And through that process, he got a couple of opportunities. The Notore opportunity was one of those, and I chose to take the Notore opportunity because it really was, for me personally, was really fit exactly what I was looking for. On one hand, professionally, I realized at this juncture in my life, I was most excited about opportunities that were at the intersection of what I do well and what I enjoyed doing, which was building early stage businesses. Okay. And then coupled with the fact that it was an opportunity in the agriculture space where the promoters of the business were really focused on trying to leverage the business environment and agricultural green revolution, not just in Nigeria but across the continent. It really was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down.
So you worked with Notore Chemicals for a couple years. I see here on your bio that you helped them raise a bit of funding for one of their projects. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think my time at Notore was a wonderful experience. I think the team there learned a tremendous amount from the team at Notore. Got the opportunity to really work across multiple groups within the organization. So my first role when I moved back was really to help them develop and their commercial strategy. So came back, spent the first 6 months traveling extensively across Nigeria through the rural areas to get a better sense of the agriculture sector, and then from that helped outline the commercial strategy and work with the team to build and execute that. I think we, as an organization, we were able to build across from, building out a strong distribution channel for our fertilizer business, building out a strategy and inventory, the team launching a seed business, to launching one of Nigeria's first and largest private sector agricultural extension operations, as well as developing a strategy and raising $25 million for food business, which at the time I was managing director of one of their subsidiaries. Mm-hmm. Then the activity I did on the fundraising side was more towards the end of my time in Notore, which was about 3 years, where the financial crisis eventually caught up with Nigeria, and because the debt markets were pretty much closed from mid 2009 through 2010. They asked me to lead the corporate finance team, where we drove a private placement, which we eventually closed in mid-2010 and raised about $135 million in new equity for the business.
So you do all that, and then you decide to take a break from Notore, or how did you transition into founding Doreo Partners?
Well, I think it was a culmination of a journey that had been on for many years.
Okay.
I think coming out when I graduated from MIT with my master's in mechanical engineering, I had to make a decision on if I wanted to follow the path I was on, which was engineering, product development, et cetera, or follow a path in the business world. And I realized, despite my love of the intellectual stimulation of engineering, my heart was enjoyed more the people the relationships with individuals, and so I decided to take a path more down the business route. And my goal was to go out and learn from the best people I could, all the different pieces of running a business, from product development, operations, manufacturing, commercial side, finance, et cetera, et cetera. And through the organizations and leaders I had the opportunity to work with, over a span of about 10 years, I felt I was ready to go out and do it on my own.
Okay, so I also see here in my research that you either raised $40 million to start this venture, or you're currently ongoing raising $40 million. Is that correct?
Well, it's actually our approach has evolved.
Okay.
We actually now focus on raising capital on a deal-by-deal basis versus a fund strategy.
Okay.
What we started incubating our current flagship investment, Babangona, back in 2010. And when we launched that we officially launched that in about towards the end of 2011, went into our first farming season in 2012, and now we're basically in our third farming season with that, and grown quite significantly. I think the last 24 months we've grown the business about 30-fold.
Wait, did I hear you correctly? You've grown the business 30-fold since you started a couple years ago?
Correct.
Wow. Okay, let's dive deeper into that. You changed your strategy from a fund strategy to deal-by-deal strategy. So does that mean per investment you have to keep raising funds?
Exactly.
Okay.
That to be a more effective strategy.
Okay. But the typical private equity model, you see investors putting in capital for a horizon of about 3 to 5 years. And I think because of the idiosyncratic nature of agriculture, wouldn't that require a longer horizon of 5 to 7 years, or maybe 7 to 10 years? How do investors get their return after investing in Doreo?
Sure. I think the key thing is you're right in the sense that agriculture is a longer term, more patient investment. It's a scale business. It's one of the reasons why we're focusing very aggressively on scaling the model that we have. The reality is that each business that we're incubating, which right now, as I mentioned, we're focusing exclusively on the Babangona business to get that off the ground. Also, I think you have to recognize our model is slightly different. We are very early stage investment. We basically think about strategies and ideas that have the best potential for job creation, and build businesses that are highly scalable and profitable to attract requisite private sector capital that will grow and scale those businesses rapidly, and in turn create the millions of jobs that we need. So the businesses that we're scaling are, like most traditional businesses, there'll be exit opportunities down the line, whether it's from strategics, management buyouts, potential IPOs, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So let's talk about Babangona Farms. I did a little bit of research on your strategy and your model, and you took a franchising model and applied it to agriculture, similar to what people would say McDonald's does for restaurants, and then applying it to a sector that is not quite known for such a model or such innovative tactics. How did that come about?
Well, it really came about from our desire to we realized that if we were going to leverage private sector investments to create jobs, we had to have a very focused strategy. And so our strategy was very simply to invest in businesses, profitable, scalable businesses, that in turn would increase the profitability of small-scale agriculture. So we spent about 2 years really trying to understand why smallholder farmers are poor, and how we could play a role sustainably to fix that. And we quickly understood that the reason why smallholder farmers are poor are due to their low economies of scale. Pretty much any business that struggles with economies of scale struggles to attain the requisite level of profitability to reinvest and grow their business. The reality is most farmers all over the world struggle with this and have been able to attain higher economies of scale through development of strong farmer groups. So we did really extensive research on this, and developed a model we call an agricultural franchise, where we franchise grassroots level farmer groups and provide these farmer groups in a traditional franchisee-franchisor relationship the products and services they need to be successful farmer groups, and in turn successful farmers. And that's a model that we've developed and executed with Babangona.
So agriculture, with the smallholder farmers in particular, suffers from low agricultural productivity. A small farmer can only do so much with whatever hectare of land he has, maybe 1 hectare of land or less than that. So how does Doreo, through Babangona, help magnify the impact the smallholder farmer has?
Well, I think at the core of you've hit the nail on the head. The core of the challenge we face in the agriculture sector in Nigeria and really across the continent is low levels of productivity. The truth of the matter is, it's not so much about whether small farmers are productive versus large farmers. Both models can be equally competitive and productive, as can be seen by, if you look at the state model of agriculture, where it's small farmers on 5 hectares, less than 5 hectares worth of land, highly productive, and being able to compete with the more traditional models of agriculture that we're familiar with, the Western model, large farmers, big tractors, et cetera, et cetera. So the key is, how do we get these small farmers productive? And we spent a significant amount of time really working with brilliant experts in the space, from IITA to leading plant pathologists and agronomists across the region, to develop a model of agricultural production that enables smallholder farmers to attain yields that are upwards of 5 times the national average. The national average for maize in Nigeria is about 1.4 tons per hectare. Our best performing farmers are getting up to 6.9 tons per hectare producing maize right here in Nigeria.
Okay, that's interesting. So could you walk us through the services you would offer a smallholder farmer, for example, through Babangona?
Sure. Services basically fall into 4 buckets. It begins with training. Training is a very critical piece to not only get the organization working effectively, but then also helping these farmers migrate from a subsistence mindset to a commercial mindset and really start thinking of their farms as businesses. Obviously, training on how to become better farmers. The second service we deliver is credit. So financial services. The reality is that at the end of the day, one of the key things that is inhibiting the growth of smallholder farmers in Nigeria and across the region is lack of access to credit. Credit is, and without that, they can't access the working capital to buy the products that they need to get the high levels of yield, etc. that they have. This third service that we deliver are inputs, and that's really delivered through a holistic set of inputs, everything from the highest quality seeds, and other inputs to farm analysis to really help the farmers really understand what specific inputs they need to optimize their yields are, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, we have a marketing platform where the farmers are able to market their products directly to large buyers, and in turn be able to get better pricing for their hard work.
Oh, okay. So does Doreo actually take hold of the yields and sell them on behalf of the farmers, or it's through an exchange?
We physically market the products for them.
Okay, that's interesting. And how has the government policies in terms of agricultural industrialization affected the way Doreo is operating in this space? Because typically the government has had a lot of challenges trying to scale up agriculture. I know they've talked about it a lot, but the economy is so heavily dependent on oil that it seems from the outside that not a lot gets done in the agriculture space.
Well, I think the reality is, the government is making, real efforts, particularly over the last few years, to try to get the sector on the right path. The reality is many of the initiatives that the government has set in motion, some of the impact may not be felt for a few years because there are more underlying structural issues, such as trying to really, for example, regulating the seed industry and enabling private sector companies to really get into the seed sector more readily, enabling innovation to occur within the sector. But these are changes that the impact of which will take be seen. So the reality is efforts are being made. We see our role really as being a partner, where the truth of the matter is that if you look at the economy, it's really the private sector that has access to the quantity of capital and expertise to really execute and create change. The government's key role is really more of an enabler of this change.
Okay. So, in addition to the government enabling the environment for agriculture to succeed, what are some of the challenges outside of what we typically know in agriculture that are still difficult to overcome?
Well, I think to be the key thing that if there's one thing that if the government could focus its efforts on, that would have tremendous effort on driving the growth of the agriculture sector, it's really around rural road development.
Market access.
Well, no, it's roads, physical
roads,
infrastructure.
Okay.
Nothing too complicated. Just build roads. If you look at the impact that having a good road has on a community, it's massive. Having a good road means that they can get agricultural inputs there cheaper, more available at the right time that they need it. When they're marketing their products, it's easy to move the products in and out of those communities, and they have a better advantage and be more competitive. And really, the truth of the matter is road infrastructure is such a large upfront investment that it's really something that is in the purview of government to do. The reality is many initiatives can be somewhat complicated to execute.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've been building roads since the Romans. So I personally would think that if the government would just take a few years and channel a significant portion of its spend into these types of infrastructure investments, the payoff would be massive down the line.
Okay, that's great. So your focus is on trying to create 10 million jobs in the next couple of years. That's by 2030. 2030, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how are you going about encouraging young people to get into agriculture? Because the typical view of agriculture is that, a business where you don't get rich. You have to work very hard. I think people still see agriculture as something that you still use a hoe and a cutlass and you're in the sun all day. So how are you helping to, make agriculture more appealing to the youth in terms of job creation?
I think that in addition to the issues you highlighted, the core issue of reason why youth very rationally are veering away from agriculture is because they've seen their father, they've seen their mother, they've seen their grandfather, they've seen their grandmother practice agriculture, and they've seen them stuck in this cycle of poverty. And the reality is they've been stuck in this cycle of poverty due to the low levels of technology that they've had access to, due to the fact that they don't have access to the credit required to purchase the quantity of inputs they need. And then in turn, when it's time to harvest those products, they aren't able to get an appropriate price for it. So this has really kept these farmers in this cycle of poverty. Now, something that really makes it even worse for you is the fact that youth, typically because of the way land is split up from generation to generation, tend to even have less land than their father or their grandfather had. In addition, those same youth do not have access to effectively a free labor force in their older children that older farmers typically have. So they have to go out and hire labor, and so then that drives up their costs and makes them even less competitive. And finally, because they have this small amount of land and they have the same low levels of productivity, the income they can get on this small amount of land really doesn't justify the efforts, and it's probably they're unable to actually even live on that. Now, the way that we're solving this challenge is, first and foremost, is productivity enhancements. So if we're able to take a young person that maybe has half a hectare of land that he inherited from his father, mother, so on and so forth, and double that individual's productivity on that land, it's equivalent to if you just double the amount of land that the person had. And we're often actually more than doubling that yield. We're able to take, as I mentioned, our top performing farmers are able to get yields as high as 6.9 tons. That's 5 times higher than the average yield. Now, when you layer on top of that the other benefits that we bring, such as providing access to mechanization and other services, we help to solve the labor challenge that young farmers have and turn them more from what people envision as farmers toiling in the field to really actually farm managers. Managing a series of products and service deliveries to their farm, and then finally, at the end of the harvest, when they're able to, get a much higher yield now through our marketing platform, we're able to get them even better pricing than what they can achieve themselves, further enhancing their income and productivity and profitability. So all these things come together to provide young people a truly viable alternative, and it's one of the reasons why in the communities that we've seen, anecdotally, we're hearing stories about young people that are actually, you see reverse migration from the urban areas to back home to their rural communities, because now they can actually, make a living and have a good livelihood. Because at the end of the day, home is always home.
Yeah.
People would rather be there. The reason that most people leave their home is to seek for better economic opportunities. So we're focused on providing those good economic opportunities at home.
Okay. So your main focus would be to help them achieve at least economic independence back home through enhancing their productivity on their farms. Now, in the long term, is that going to be sustainable? Because the way I'm looking at it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you will have a whole bunch of small holder farmers where maybe somebody owns like a half a hectare of land, etc. And then you'd have maybe some other people with more than 1 hectare to massive hectares. Are you foreseeing consolidation?
No, I'm not really envisioning consolidation. I think the reality is it all comes down to how much money can somebody make on it.
Okay.
So if an average farmer is able to have 1 hectare of land.
Mm-hmm.
That 1 hectare of land, if they're able to get yields that are close to 4 or 5 tons per hectare, no, we're not even talking about the absolute best yields that we're seeing, just 4 or 5 tons per hectare, this person is getting a net income of over about $1,500 per hectare. $1,500, is a lot of money.
Yeah.
By the World Bank standards, you're making over $1,000 a year. You're moving from poverty into really the lower middle class.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the opportunity that we're providing.
Okay, that's great. So what's the role of financial sponsors like PE firms and banks in agricultural projects? Because my understanding is that commercial lending has typically been very low for agriculture in Nigeria, somewhere around less than 5%.
Well, I think what you're finding nowadays is you're seeing more and more progressive banks coming into the sector. We work very closely with First City Monument Bank, FCMB,
Okay.
and they're really have been one of the leaders in the sector, thinking about how to appropriately serve the individuals at the bottom of the pyramid appropriately as they grow. So I think you're starting to see some innovators within the sector really look within the financial sector, look critically at the agriculture sector and try to figure out how best they can support the sector while ensuring that they're able to make appropriate margins and so on and so forth.
That's interesting. And in terms of capturing higher yields for the farmers, for example, are you looking at value-added services like processing raw crops into higher value products? Take, for example, soy into soy milk, etc. Are you looking into that part of the value chain also?
Quite frankly, we're focused on on trying to solve the really underlying problem, which is farm level productivity.
Okay.
And we believe also that's the area where the jobs are. So if we're able to focus on that, and we let our customers who buy our products focus on the value addition side.
Okay, that's interesting. All right, so let's switch gears here a little bit. We've talked a lot about the industry itself and entrepreneurship. So could you please tell us some of the compelling reasons why you as an entrepreneur would advise someone to go into agriculture entrepreneurship, especially the youth, because those are the people we're talking to today?
Well, I think at the end of the day, let's ask ourselves, what is Nigeria's competitive advantage right now?
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that our key competitive advantage is the natural resources that we have, which, besides oil and some of the other resources, really comes down to land. So we're blessed with a tremendous amount of arable land, over 80 million hectares, which, every young person from pretty much any village anywhere in the country at this stage can access something. The second piece is, unlike many countries that are reliant on irrigation and other really high cost aspects of agriculture, right across Nigeria we get pretty much 1,200 millimeters of rain. In addition, we've got 3 of the 8 major river systems in Africa, not to mention tremendous groundwater resources as well. And then, in reality, we've also got ample. Agriculture is labor intensive, and we've got an ample supply of labor. By 2025, Nigeria will have somewhere around 120 million people under the age of 30 in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final piece is that every agricultural economy that has become a major player in the agriculture sector has been able to do that off the back of a large internal market. Those internal markets are able to help build up the required economies of scale to make that agriculture sector very competitive. Let's look at Brazil, let's look at the United States, et cetera, et cetera. And that's also what Nigeria has. So Nigeria is perfectly positioned to become really one of the leading agricultural powerhouses globally over the next few years. I think the reality is that I think as a nation we're recognizing the importance of getting the agriculture sector working, getting the agriculture sector right, to play a critical role to solve our job creation challenges as a nation. And that will really set the foundation to enable us to have a really strong, high-growth industry in the near future.
Okay. So now let's talk about you personally. Tell us, what were some of the challenges and frustrations you faced when launching your entrepreneurial venture?
I think the challenges that we face are probably no different from many other entrepreneurs. They really fall into two buckets. You've got the being able to raise the requisite amount of capital to do what you need to do, and as well as access to the appropriate team to support you. In most emerging markets, we have challenges around human capital due to the fact that the educational sector may not have invested as much as it should have in these individuals. So you have to get creative to overcome these challenges. I think for us, we invest very heavily in the development of our team. We also have a very rigorous recruiting process, so we look for people not so much about the skills they have, but their potential to learn, and then we invest in their ability to learn. And then on the capital side, it's really there's no other way around it than making sure that you've done your homework, you've got a very clear plan, you manage expectations, and you ensure that you execute the plan and build confidence in the folks that will provide you the required capital to grow.
And now, Kola, let's take a quick minute to thank our friends before we get on with the rest of the show.
Are you interested in increasing sales and driving higher profitability for your company? Do you want to reach over 50 million buyers and potential customers? Then head over to Konga Marketplace at konga.com. Konga.com is Nigeria's largest e-commerce marketplace that provides millions of customers the ability to access a wide variety of products at very attractive prices. Showcase your goods and services and watch your business explode. Go to konga.com, that's KONGA.com, and sign up to be a seller on Nigeria's largest marketplace. Looking to make secure and hassle-free transactions online? Want to take control of all your bills and be the master of your universe? Just Paga it. Paga is Nigeria's premier e-payment solution that makes it extremely easy to conclude transactions online. Whether it's paying your bills or online shopping, Paga has got you covered. Just Paga it. Go to mypaga.com, that's mypaga.com, for more details. Your cash, anytime, anywhere, Paga.
Could you tell us about a key lesson you've learned in your years of doing business in the US as well as in Africa?
Yeah, I've learned. I learned a long time ago that when you're in business, the most important thing is to plan effectively.
Okay.
So for us, the reality is we spend extensive amounts of time, thinking about things and planning things out as best we can, till we can expect the unexpected. And the reality, if at the end of the day we don't accomplish our goal at the end of the day, the reality is, you can't really call that failure.
Yeah.
If you literally put everything you feel in place to accomplish that goal.
Okay. So another thing I I think in the course of my research was that I listened to a talk you gave, and you were talking about the importance of choosing a partner, and you mentioned that it's important to have a mentor and it's important to have a strong partner, and that you found your wife to be both a mentor and a good partner. So could you please talk to us about the importance of choosing both the right business partner as well as the right life partner?
Well, I think fundamentally, picking the right business partner is hands down probably the most important decision you're ever going to make. I was actually having dinner with one of my colleagues last night, and we were talking on the same topic. And what I find always is young men always tend to have this plan and this schedule, and say, okay, by this date I must be married. And what happens is that tends to put you under unnecessary and undue pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's more important that you take your time and find somebody that truly is compatible with you. And together you will help her achieve her goals, and she in turn will help you achieve your goals. I think that's really the critical thing you want to look for. Now, in terms of business partner, I'm fortunate in the sense that both of those are rolled into the same person, and so it's been it's always important to have somebody that is rational, patient, and really more importantly challenges you to think about your decisions that you're making in more depth. But at the same time, once you agree on a course of action as a team, is there to support you through the ups and downs of executing that plan.
Okay. That's great. So, as we start to wind down the interview, looking back on your career thus far, if you had to go back and do it again, if you had to time travel, let's say, and talk to yourself before you started, maybe 10 years ago or so, what's the one piece of advice you'd whispered into your ear before you started your entrepreneurial journey?
I would say that I think many entrepreneurs tend to probably have this challenge very early in their journey, where they tend to often rely too heavily on experts versus their own intuition and initial ideas. I think for me, probably that was one of the things. If you think about a few setbacks I might have had early as an entrepreneur, it was you relied too heavily on this individual that you thought was a great expert or so on and so forth on one topic or another, and you may have let them own something and drive things without as much oversight as you probably should provide. The reality is, in the early days of a business as an entrepreneur, you really need to make sure that you're fully engaged in almost every decision and all activities.
Okay. And now, I'd like to focus that attention to things that have helped you develop as an entrepreneur. So are there any useful resources, books, messages that you found inspirational to you at the beginning of or throughout your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, the reality is, I think not so much books or resources or so on and so forth. I think people who have a desire to be an entrepreneur, I really believe there's two types of entrepreneurial businesses. There's entrepreneurial businesses that are probably more tech heavy and less people intensive, and there are entrepreneurial businesses that are probably more operational and people intensive. So what you find is the businesses that are really more about a product or a technology that you don't have to have a large team and build an organization and so on and so forth. Those things, once you build up that expertise in that particular area, I think as an entrepreneur you can be very successful. But if you're trying to build an entrepreneurial business that is operationally intensive, that requires you to have appropriate leadership skills to guide and grow a large organization, I think there's no substitute to ensuring that you do what you can do early in your career to work for people and organizations that you aspire to be, and to learn from those people and those organizations. Because there's truly is no substitute for actually going through that type of a learning opportunity. That was the path that I took. And I think hands down that's probably what's prepared me the most.
Okay, so could you name just a few of those key skills that you would advise young entrepreneurs to develop?
Really, the most important one is first and most important one is an exceptional work ethic.
Okay.
Work in an organization that is challenging you, where in a week you might have to stay up 24 hours, a couple of days a week to get the project done. And, once you do that a few times, and it just becomes habit, and then you really are able to push yourself to accomplish more than what you probably ever thought you were capable of. The second one that is to be able to learn from individuals that truly are great leaders, people that are able to inspire other people to accomplish once again more than what they thought they could. And every once in a while, it's also good to you don't want to spend too much time there, but also work for somebody that might not be such a great leader, so you actually understand what not to do.
Okay.
Those lessons are actually equally as important as well. And so if I had to break it down to two key things, it's work ethic and leadership.
Work ethic and leadership, great. So I mentioned earlier that you used to be a host of a TV show in your teen years. This was many, many, many years ago. I'm sure not many people remember this. But I remember because my cousin had a big crush on you when we were in Port Harcourt. And she always used to talk Kola Masha, this Kola Masha. I was like, yeah, that's the guy that was in the Koi Club. So could you tell us a little bit about the lessons you learned while you were a media personality in your youth?
Well, I think...
I hope I'm not embarrassing you, or are you trying to keep that? Are you trying to keep that a little secret?
I think most importantly, probably from that activity, it provided me a tremendous amount of exposure to learn about new areas and new things that I probably wouldn't have had an opportunity to. I remember, I think my record was interviewing 23 people in one day.
Wow.
From any of those interactions, you definitely are able to learn multiple things. So that probably helped broaden my horizon significantly.
Okay.
It eliminated, there's nothing more terrifying than live television.
Yeah.
So after you do that for a few years, really very few things scare you. And then I think it's also important that when you have the opportunity to do that early in your life, especially if you have the right support network around you, it ensures that you are able to have the right perspective on life as well.
So would there be any media activities for Kola Masha in the future?
Well, the future is a wonderful place. It's always hard to say.
That's great.
Maybe I can have a farming talk show.
That'll be awesome. Okay. And so the last question for the show is this. If you were to advise recent grads just coming out of university, or maybe a couple years out of university, just starting their journey, as it were, what's the one biggest thing you'd tell them to watch out for to do?
That's actually very simple. It's to focus on what you can learn versus what you can earn early in your career.
Okay.
I made several decisions early in my career where I gave up opportunities that could provided me much higher salary or so on and so forth to go for opportunities that would develop me and grow me personally. And I think reality, when you're early in your career, knowledge is much more valuable, practical than real knowledge.
That's great. So, as you've just heard Kola say, focus on what you can learn as opposed to what you can earn. The money will always come later, but it's great to have those fundamentals done and learned early in your career so that you can use them and build them as you grow. And then when you reach the pinnacle of your career, you can see the financial rewards. So, Kola, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I really enjoyed talking to you, learning about your experience, your adventures in agriculture, talking about media and all the advice you've given us. Is there any final thing you'd like to say before we sign off?
Well, I think I just want to encourage everyone to recognize that I think we all have a responsibility to help our country, Nigeria, as well as the continent, solve this challenge that we're facing. If you look at the issues of youth unemployment in this country, it's a massive challenge, and it requires all of us to play an active role to help solve. The truth of the matter is that many of the challenges we're facing from a security standpoint in this country stem from just our spiraling levels of youth unemployment that are currently sitting over 60%. So I'd encourage everyone to actively think about what they do and think about if by the actions they've taken today, whether they've helped to create a job or not.
For me, that's especially important because I actually started this show as a result of the recruitment crisis that happened maybe sometime early in the year, middle of the year, where one of the government agencies was recruiting for a handful of jobs, and you find several million people turned up in stadiums and whatnot to do those things. And it turned out to be a big fiasco, lots of people losing their lives, getting injured. So I was like, wow, if this many people are just coming out to apply for just a handful of jobs, that means it's going to deteriorate to a point where there's no hope, and that's going to lead to increase in violent crime, increase in all kinds of issues. That's where we got the Niger Delta crisis, Boko Haram. All those things are coming from disenfranchised people that don't see a future and have decided, if I'm not going to see anything positive out of this, I might as well go the negative route and get something for myself. So that's what inspired me to at least do my own little bit to encourage people that, there are people out there that are starting their own ventures, doing interesting things in interesting niches. And that if you want to model one of these people, you hear them, listen to them, and be encouraged by them. Because we can all see that, especially out of the West, we don't really see that many African stories coming out, African entrepreneurial stories. So I said, let me be able to highlight some of the people that look like us, sound like us, talk like us, and then inspire people so that, you don't have to go the negative route. You can go the way this positive role model goes. So, Kola, just thanks again for your stories and your inspirational words of wisdom, and we wish you continued success throughout your Doreo adventure, and we look forward to talking to you sometime in the future.
I do as well.
All right.
Thank you again.
Don't let another minute go by without taking action to change your life. Visit Odeshi.com right now for more incredible resources, and we'll see you next time on Odeshi, the Bulletproof Entrepreneur.